Broadcasting from Orchard Park, New York,
and Boca Raton, Florida,
it's the Freight 360 podcast. From freight broker sales tips to sports talk, this podcast is all about helping you grow as a freight broker. We're your hosts, Nate Cross
and Benjamin Kowalski.
Let's talk freight.
All right. Happy Black Friday. Happy Thanksgiving. Welcome to the end of the year. It's episode 219 of the Freight 360 podcast. Ben, are you a Black Friday shopper by any chance?
Yes and no. Like, I like going to the mall. I'm just like nostalgic. Reminds me of being a little kid. I was at the mall last night, actually. So I was pre-Black Friday. Maybe we'll be going day after Thanksgiving. Maybe not. We'll see.
I have actually last year was like one of the first years I didn't go, but like the last 10 or 15 years, I've gone like every year. Like whether it was 5 a.m., midnight, or Thanksgiving, like 10 p.m. I've been a big Black Friday shopper. I think I might get a TV this year. We got kind of an older one in our family room. We might upgrade. We'll see.
Dude, let me know what you're looking at, because my TV kind of it's not even that old. I think it's like a year and a half old, and it just constantly has issues. I was on the phone with Samsung last night, and I was thinking about the same thing. I'm like, how many times am I going to call them? It'll still probably be doing the same thing before I just end up doing what I'll inevitably do, and maybe I'll just
go get a new one.
Exactly what you just said. Every time I'm in Costco, every week I walk past them, I'm like, dude, they're like a third of the price of what they were like a year or two ago.
Oh, it's insane. There's like some of the deals I saw this morning when I was looking through the ads was like 75-inch for $400, 65-inch for $200, and I'm like, what? I remember like a 40-inch being like $3,000 when flat screens came out. So,
for sure.
Yeah.
So you're saying like 65 inches are now in like the hundreds of dollars?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
For like 4K, like a decent TV?
Yeah.
Like...
Yep. Yeah, TVs are on the cheap now, man. I mean, legit, like I bought a TV 2 years ago on Black Friday. It's in my office now. I bought a nice one. It's like a Samsung OLED or QLED, something like that. And it was like $700. But they for sure had like $250 TVs.
Well, that was a thing. And we talk about this tech side of things too on the show and off the air, but it's like, it's a smart TV, which is great because it does everything it's supposed to, and it updates like it would your computer.
Yeah.
But it has glitches now like it's a PC. And we always talk, PC versus Apple, and kind of why I switched to Apple was like, I just didn't want to deal with that. And I'm like, 3 phone calls to Samsung. I'm doing the exact same thing with my TV that I did with my
producer.
PC.
Steven is shaking his head because he's a big green text kind of guy. So, yeah. Well, hey, anyway, thanks for joining us on this awesome episode. We're going to talk year-end, peak season, year in review. We're going to just talk today about what's going on in the world of freight. But keep sending us your questions. We'll be answering a lot more on Tuesday's Final Mile. We got 4 of them that came through that we picked for this week. This episode is brought to you by Blue Book Services. Blue Book is the resource that you need if you're transporting fresh produce. Their online database contains thousands of companies throughout the produce industry supply chain. You can easily search their database to generate new sales leads. Blue Book's credit ratings help you avoid companies with high credit risk, and their team can help resolve disputed loads. To learn more, go to producebluebook.com and click join today. That's producebluebook.com. All right, back to our banter here. Thanksgiving. I mean, I know this drops on Friday, and it's currently Wednesday as we record, but do you have any big Turkey Day plans there, Mr. Kowalski? What are you guys doing in Florida?
Well, this is funny, right?
Go to the beach, go surfing?
Well, I was going to go today, and then the report showed there is no waves. They were supposed to be all week. That's what I wanted to do today. But long story short, when I was a kid, like I just never enjoyed Thanksgiving food. Like everything kind of on the menu I was just not a personal fan of, and neither was my little cousin. When we were little, we used to beg our parents, like, can't we just order a pizza the day before? Everybody gets excited for what they want to eat. There isn't anything that we're eating that I want to eat. Can we at least look forward to something? So long story short, when we were like 19 or 20, or maybe a little older, we were like adults, right? And my aunt cooked like this big Thanksgiving dinner. They let us cook what we wanted. So we went and got a bunch of fillets, a bunch of oysters, and a bunch of like our favorite foods. And everybody gave us shit when we were starting to cook in the afternoon. But sure as hell, once everybody started serving dinner, everybody started walking over to our side of things and going, hey, let me get a piece of that prime rib, or let me get a little bit of that steak. Let me grab some of those oysters. That looks pretty good. So now my family up north does both, like the traditional Thanksgiving dinner, and they do like a prime rib. So we don't have any family down here. I had a reservation for Abe and Louie's, just a nice steak restaurant. We were going to go in the afternoon and just have like a nice dinner with my family. But actually, one of my clients, long-term clients, invited me over to her house. So we're going to have like the traditional Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow over, kind of like family style with some my clients that I know and their friends that I don't know. So it should be more of the traditional sense that I grew
There
up
you
with.
go.
So looking forward to it. What are you guys up to?
Family stuff. So my parents they're usually up here for Thanksgiving. They live in Florida. As I probably have mentioned on the show before. They went back to Florida like beginning of November. So, and I don't blame them. I'd rather be
Yeah.
where it's in the 80s than, how the Northeast takes its turn in the fall. But, so we'll be at my wife's family's house, and, the classic turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, cranberry, if you're into that weird side for Thanksgiving, and probably a nice bottle of dry red wine, man. And then some Black Friday shopping, and that'll be
Yeah.
it. So good
Well, what's on your
stuff.
shopping list? What do you got? Anything other than the TV you're eyeing,
No,
or?
nope, that's it. I'm legitimately, and we are going to talk about peak season on the show today, and about like a lot of the demand and stuff. I legitimately am going to try and order all of the Christmas gifts online this year. I don't know why. I'm just feeling like not going to the mall. So, or
I
to
like the
Target or
mall, but
Best
I
Buy
don't.
or whatever for that matter.
I enjoy going to the mall for like a brief period again, because it just reminds me of being a little kid and going there with like my grandma and stuff. But to actually shop, there's nowhere near as much selection. Again, we were there last night. I was telling you, my wife wanted to return some of the gym clothes we got from like Fabletics, and we're like walking through the store. There might have been 5 to 10% of their like what they have available in the store. And I was like, oh, see if there's something you like. I'm like, there's literally nothing here. I'm like, online, there's like five
Everything
to
is
ten
online.
times more for this
Yeah.
store. I'm like, they don't even have like, because they have like, I guess like Lululemon, like kind of business pants that are like comfortable to wear. And I was going to look at a pair. I'm like, they don't even have them to try on. So now you just have to order them. Which, and we can get into this in the episode. I've read some recent articles that companies are now going to start charging for returns. Where the first 20 years of the internet was free returns, and now that's starting to change a bit. Where
I
they're
did
starting to
see the
fee it.
Amazon certain items they may charge a fee to return.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's like rural areas they're starting on with. I'm not sure, but anyway, let's shift to sports really quick. Last week I said the Bills suck and they should fire everybody. And this week, I'm here to let you guys know that I'm back on the bandwagon. And man, 6-5 never felt so good.
Nice.
So
Well, how about the irony? The Steelers lost and fired their offensive coordinator.
yes, I saw that. I saw that. The Steelers' loss was actually it was what the Bills fans wanted to see. I know it's not what you want to hear, but the thought there is the Steelers and Cleveland both having the same record before that game. The Steelers are the bigger threat for a wild card spot, given that you have a healthy quarterback versus Cleveland is not right now. They're playing their backup. So,
well, healthy and good are
true. Yeah, but Kenny
you might have
Pickett's
a healthy
playing, whereas
quarterback, but
Deshaun Watson's out. So,
yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. Bills got a big game on Sunday afternoon on the road in Philadelphia. So Eagles are looking real. They're looking like the best team in the NFL right now. So
Did they beat KC? I didn't get a chance to. They played Kansas City this week, didn't they? Wasn't there a Super Bowl matchup?
Philly, KC played on Monday night, and Philly won. Legitimately, the Chiefs would have won that game, but their receiver lost a bomb pass from Mahomes on like the final game-winning drive. But it is what it is.
Hey.
The Chiefs, I don't think, are the same offense that we saw the last few years. Similar to like the Bills having like the same. I mean, the Bills are on a terribly lower, different level this year. But yeah, a lot of different. I don't think any team right now is like 100% all locked in throughout the league. But we'll see. We got a lot of injuries, like a lot of quarterback injuries. Like obviously, we were talking about Deshaun Watson. You got Aaron Rodgers. You got Joe Cool from Cincy. Yeah, man, and the list goes on. But they pulled Zach Wilson from the Jets because he just sucks. But hey, anyway, that's all I got for sports. We'll see how the week plays out. Obviously, 3 games on Thanksgiving. You got the Jets Dolphins on Friday, and then a whole bunch on Sunday. So, and probably a Monday night as well, like every week. News? Anything new in the freight world, logistics world?
Nothing that I've caught, at least recently. You see anything noteworthy?
I saw. So first of all, if you guys are not, if you guys don't get the Freight Caviar newsletter, sign up for it. Paul puts out, him and his team put out really good news stuff 3 times a week. I was reading it this morning, and there was some funny stuff on there about. I didn't realize Omni and Forward Air were merging. That was announced a couple months ago, and apparently there's been this like crazy back and forth. It's like a multi-billion-dollar merge, like $3 billion or something, and they're like going back and forth, suing each other, trying to like break up the potential merger and all this stuff. It was kind of comical there. I didn't even know that they were merging. There's been so much news about companies tanking this year that I haven't even stayed up to date on like mergers and acquisitions, but. Sure. So that was kind of interesting to see. What else? Nothing else really. Yeah. But we'll see. Well, let's give a shout out to DAT, and we're going to talk peak season, year end, and permanent Christmas lights. We're going to probably bring in our producer, Steven, because I'm not sure what his comment means, but I'm going to ask him. But let's shout out DAT first.
Tired of struggling to find accurate rates and the right carriers for your freight? With DAT1, you can access more than 500 million posted loads and trucks every year. That's 3 times more capacity than any other load board. Plus, their integrated freight management system makes it easy to cover loads 24/7. They have the most trusted network of carriers, brokers, and shippers in the industry. You'll get real-time rates on every lane, so you know exactly how much a shipment will cost before you commit to it. Plus, you get instant access to top bids from qualified carriers around the country. Get 10% off your first year of DAT1 when you visit the link in the show notes.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm going to start off talking peak season. Peak season is like we'll just call it like Thanksgiving to Christmas, New Year's time of year when, there's typically a peak demand for shipping. Steven, I'm going to bring you in to start this off here, because in our little chat here, you said permanent Christmas lights for the house, getting my quote on Friday. So obviously people buy a lot of stuff around the holiday season, whether it's presents or even decorations is a big commodity as well. We personally, my wife and I bought a lot of Christmas lights last week to put up. But Steven, I'm curious, what is this permanent Christmas light deal?
Yeah, so hopefully the wife doesn't watch this, but it's a company, there's a few of them across the country now, but they install LED lights in the roof line that you can't see, and you can change the colors all year round, and it's permanent. So you don't have to have Christmas lights ever again.
So, so then like come September, you could throw up like your Cincinnati Bengals colors, and like Halloween. Well, I guess it's pretty much the same colors for Halloween.
Yeah, Valentine's Day, Halloween, July 4th. You can do all the. And the nice thing about it is, it's a strip all the way across the roof line, so you can cut some of them off to make it look like downlighting on the house when it's not a holiday.
Yeah,
and then you can set patterns or whatever, so like you can have the lights flashing or going on
permanent Christmas lights. Never knew it. Ben, do you guys do? Is there like a lot of holiday decorations and stuff? Down your way?
Yeah, there are actually quite a bit. Like there was Light Up Night at Meisner, which is like the center of all the stores and restaurants. They did the big Christmas tree. Lots of people do lots of Christmas lights down here. Lots of palm trees. The resorts all do it.
Yeah,
and all of the shopping centers, restaurants, all the palm trees are all lit up. It's pretty cool. There's actually quite a bit.
Yeah,
more so than in Pittsburgh, actually.
That makes sense. So. When did COVID start? 4 years ago? Yeah. So like 4 years ago, 2019, we went to my parents for like New Year's, and obviously Christmas lights were still up. And there was in Fort Pierce, Florida, there's a big palm tree all lit up. And then we drove down to we're on Hutchinson Island, and there's like this big ass house lit up, like so big that like with all these lights, people were like stopping there, taking pictures.
Yeah.
They had like choreographed music going. Like if you turned on your radio to a certain station, it was pretty crazy.
There's a house in our neighborhood that does that. It's not a huge house, but it's decked out just like that. Both them and their neighbors do it. There's got to be 15 to 25, full size inflatable, whatever, from Frosty to Santa on the roof. And there's music playing on speakers all the time to what the lights go off. And well, even since A was little, we would, take her for a walk at night with the dogs and walk past the house, and she'd get to see all of it. So yeah, pretty cool. I mean, we obviously don't get snow or any of that aspect. And since it's warm, people don't mind spending time outside. I'm guessing hanging lights, that's probably why it's a little more prevalent down here, because that's all you really have.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if it gets too cold, you can just be lazy and get some permanent Christmas lights installed on your house and not have to deal with, getting up on a ladder and facing your fear of heights and all that anxiety and good stuff. I'm just kidding. We only did like a couple of small like trees or bushes on our front landscaping, and then we have like a garland thing that goes by our front door that has lights on it, but we haven't done that part yet. I'm still trying to figure out, like, my fuse keeps popping in my basement from the lights. I got to figure out if I got too much plugged into something, but we'll figure it out maybe this weekend. Anyway, so peak season decorations, that's one of the commodities that gets shipped and there's a demand for it, but there's a lot of other stuff too. And the reason I wanted to talk about peak season, at least for a little bit, is like there are niches that you can get involved in that go absolutely bonkers this time of year. Decorations is one. Food, like if you're in any kind of like food distribution, meats, grocery in general, produce, like pumpkins still ship throughout this time of year too. Pumpkin pie is a big thing. Pumpkin spice lot PSLs from your good old Starbucks. Postal, like the USPS contracts. These are huge. A lot of times they're done as a co-brokerage agreement through another 3PL that has been awarded a large contract. Postal season is extremely just mayhem for those that are involved in it. If you do it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's pretty much like 3.5 weeks of 24-hour ops. You're not getting any sleep, not taking a shower. But this is the kind of stuff that every single year it's predictable. Christmas trees.
Well, yeah, I was just going to cite that. Did you see Dean cited them in his market update this week? I was just going to read it real quick.
What did he say? I didn't read it.
Christmas tree shipping this season in the Pacific Northwest, the largest producing region nationally, has increased reefer demand this season, pushing line haul rates to $2.47 a mile last week. At that level, the outbound spot rates were up 16 cents a mile and 40 cents a mile month over month, the third highest in 8 years. So literally moving line haul rates to some of the highest in the country. Then, dry van rates also related to Christmas tree shipping. Dry vans up 7 cents a mile to $1.59 a mile, identical to 2019, coming out of the Pacific Northwest. So moving vans and reefers up significantly just in preparation for Christmas trees starting, right? And that goes through Christmas.
Yeah. So do you remember, excuse me, last year, I think it was, Christmas trees were like a record high when it came to the cost, and people didn't realize like why is it so expensive, and transportation was like one of the reasons last year, just like because that was pretty much right after that was when everything just kind of fell out the bottom, but that was the tail end of like the peak surge and high rates and everything. But I think normally for like a real like 7-foot tree around here, you could get one for like $65 or $70, and last year I think we paid over $100. And I asked the lady, I was like, has it been like really crazy for you guys getting the trees in? And she's like, yeah, like the shipping's been really delayed. We literally like got them like the day after Thanksgiving, and normally they have them like a week or so before, because some people are just that crazy that they set up their tree in early and mid-November, but they were delayed coming in. The prices were so high, and that gets passed on to the end user, us, right? The person putting it up in their house. So
For
Wild.
sure. I mean, my average Christmas tree from what you just said, I'll bet is twice what you're paying where you're at. And again, I'm farther away, right? I
Yes.
mean, from where most of them are growing and where they've got to be shipped to. So, I mean, doesn't
Yeah.
surprise me. They move like produce. I mean,
Yep.
they've got a
Yep.
short amount of time. Once they're harvested, they've got to get to market. And otherwise, they're wasted. There's no money to be made on all that energy, effort, and money and resources that went into growing that tree, right? So,
Yeah. So I got a little local news article here. This was from about a month or so ago, but it said with over 750 farms across the state, New York is among the country's top Christmas tree producers, ranking sixth in the nation. Around 300,000 New York grown trees are sold each year, making it a $14 million industry for the state, according to the Christmas Tree Farmers Association of New York. After no, I said it'll probably be in the 6 to 8% range increase this year, and that's strictly because of increased labor costs. So transportation's down, but labor costs are up. So there you go. Your trees are going to be more expensive. But it's crazy, and I remember we coached somebody a year, maybe 2 years ago that was prospecting Christmas trees in Maine, I want to say. I might be losing my mind here, but I helped somebody do it out in Oregon like 7 years ago as well. And it's insane because and again, whether it's trees or pumpkins or whatever seasonal commodity, take this to heart when it comes to like the timing. 2 to 3 months before they start shipping is when those relationships are started to get to really, really build up. We're not talking like, oh, hey, they're moving trees now. Let's call them up and see if they need trucks. Like, you got to line that stuff up way in advance. So
for sure. I want to say two things. So we used to talk about this a lot, and it's been a long time, but we used to call it like ambulance chasing, right? There's two strategies, right, to getting in the door with kind of any company. One is exactly what you just said. It is, hey, I want to get ahead of peak season, start building relationships, having conversations so that like I can be hopefully one of their choice providers of everyone they're going to use. They're always going to have more than one broker, right?
Yep.
So it's, hey, if Christmas season's they're starting to ship trees, like you said, second week in November, right? I'm trying to talk to them 2 to 3 months prior to. So when we talk about prospecting produce, you always kind of want to line up, right, when they're getting busy 2 to 3 months in advance so that you can start having these conversations, build some trust, rapport, and show that like you're going to hustle. You're not just calling them once to get a load and you're going to disappear. It helps them vet who you are and shows a little bit about your track record and your persistence, right? Now, the other strategy, though, right, which is really useful, and for everybody listening to this Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, I used to work that Friday every year at TQL, and I used to love prospecting that day because anybody that picked up, right, usually needed something or was very likely to need help, right? Because when you've got a 3-day weekend or specifically a holiday, it shifts all of the regular lanes around, shuffles up all the trucks all over the country from where they're picking up, people taking off, other people working different hours. So what even the brokers they work with, what capacity they're used to getting isn't where it usually is that time of week. So that creates issues, right? So it's a different conversation, right? My conversations were like, hey, look, I'm sure you got your choice providers for Christmas trees this year, but hey, I want to let you know I'm available 24/7. Like you can call me tomorrow, Saturday, you can call me tonight. I will be there if you need help with one of these things. And again, you got to put a lot of calls in and make a lot of touches for this to pay out. But if you do that, again, every other broker that promised those things is likely to not be there too, right? The odds that their choice broker is going to work Thanksgiving if they need to, Good Friday, or not Good Friday, but the Black Friday, the weekend after it, there's a really high likelihood that some truck breaks down or 2 or 3, and that shipper's like, I still need these loads picked up. They call that broker, the broker doesn't answer because they're with their family, and hey, people take time off, but that creates that opportunity, right? And that's why it's like ambulance chasing for attorneys you saw back in the day. They would literally follow an ambulance to the hospital because, well, something happened. There's likely that you might be able to get a case of it. So you go to where the problem is likely to be to try to create the opportunities. So and that works in everything.
You bring up a really good point that I kind of want to talk about this for a minute. So Black Friday, Thanksgiving, great example. This applies to pretty much any holiday or time when a lot of people are not working. So think about the holidays where like banks are closed, but everyone like freight brokers still go to work, right? Like your Columbus Day. President's Day, like all those, right?
Mhm.
Half the country doesn't work. And so either way, Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Thanksgiving is a holiday. Black Friday, probably like 90% of the country is not working, but 10% are, right? So either way, communication before this stuff happens is huge. Talk to your customers and say, hey, FYI, here, like, we're going to be shut down Thursday. We'll be available, by exception if there's an emergency. Obviously, cell phone good to go. Friday, I'll have my phone. If you're working, right, let them know, hey, we're fully operational, right? If you're kind of not working and you're on demand, let them know that, right? Set the expectation beforehand so you don't have that, oh, they called you, couldn't get a hold of you, and didn't get a call back until Monday. Looks really bad, right? The other thing, too, is like you brought up, hey, this load's got to go. And if it's Friday, right, expectations, too. If you have some of these new shipping managers that aren't familiar with how holidays affect stuff, talk about that demand, right? It's going to be truck drivers take off too, right?
Exactly.
They get a holiday just like the rest of us. But they also know the ones that are going to work for Thursday and Friday, they're going to be making triple the money, right? So those rates, you're not going to be getting $2 a mile, right? You might be paying $5-6 a mile or something, just, maybe not that high, but you're going to be expecting way inflated surge pricing because it's a holiday. So keep that stuff in mind and communicate that with, your customers and whatnot. And I thought about it on Tuesday. I got a couple emails this week from people, my own company included, like, here's our office hours for the holiday week. Here's how you get a hold of us on, Wednesday afternoon as people start to leave early, on Thursday when we're closed, and Friday when we're kind of like a shell back office. But that stuff is extremely important. If you got those go-to customers that they've got those random things that pop up, stuff might fall off last minute. Make sure they know how to get a hold of you. So little tidbit there.
And be specific, right? Be specific what that means, because I'm available if you need me could mean a lot of things, right? Yep. Are you going to have access to a computer to recover a load if you need to? Is your team going to be able to recover a load if you have an issue? If you're only available to be able to communicate, meaning, hey, I can check on the status of this load, that is very different than saying, I'll be available if you need me. And your customer says, hey, my other providers dropped 2 loads. I need you. Meanwhile, your whole team that covers your loads isn't available. You got no access to DAT to cover a load. You got your cell phone, but that doesn't really help them. And now we're in a situation worse because maybe they were relying on you to be there, because when you said I'll be available, they interpret that as you'll be available in your normal capacity. And when they called you and you're like, hey, I was just letting you know that, like, I could check on our trucks with you. I can't get you a new one. They need to be aware of what you can and cannot do when you are going to be unavailable or a different type of available. Be very specific what that means with them so they know what they can and cannot access or what you can provide for them as it relates to the services.
Yep. So I want to talk the peak season, like kind of how to plan for it and some of your prospecting aspect to it. So retail is obviously huge, right? People buy presents for the holidays, whether it's Christmas, Hanukkah, what else is there? Kwanzaa, maybe just New Year's. I don't know. People buy, maybe your birthday's around then. Either way, people are buying retail goods, and a lot of the retail goods are those accounts are handled by large freight forwarders that bring that stuff in from overseas. So a lot of times, if you're a freight broker or a trucking company, your customer, if you're moving retail, might be a large forwarding company that has, let's say they have the Gap account or the Old Navy account or Kohl's or whatever it might be. So you don't have to try to work with the retailer directly. But either way, when you're talking to these people in your prospecting phase, great things to ask is like, hey, do you guys tend to see when does not do you tend to, because obviously they see a peak or a surge, but when does that start to kick off for you guys, right? And what can I best do to add value when it comes to being a transportation provider for you guys? Are you trying to find dedicated stuff, 3 months in advance? How do you operate? Is it a spot board for any overflow loads? What does that all look like? But these are all things that are predictable every single year, and great questions to have conversationally during your prospecting. It goes with like other holidays too. 4th of July is a big. There's always usually a big peak with that for food items and whatnot. But think long term when it comes to this stuff.
Yes. And a few things. I used to service L Brands a lot during the holidays on their international stuff. And L Brands provides a lot of the retailers. Victoria's Secret and Gap were the two that I was thinking of when you said that.
Okay.
And what would happen around now and over the Thanksgiving weekend is containers, right? They were supposed to be in by now that were delayed for whatever reason, the train, the boat, the port. But the retailer needs them, right?
Yes.
And they need them in a different way than they do the rest of the year. Because if that product isn't on the shelves this weekend, there is lost opportunity for that company. And it's big numbers, right? Especially when you're talking about a whole container worth of retail, right? So it would be really common, right? Normally, I bring a container in from Norfolk, right? And say it's going into Ohio, right? Like it would sometimes mostly get on a train, and then you're going to pick it up on rail because it's cheaper in Ohio, dray it to the facility, they empty it, and you take it back, right? But when you've got a scenario like the holidays, they would pay exorbitant amounts of money to what you would call an all motor. And all motor just means you're not going to use the rail, it's all on a truck. So you're now shipping a container 400, 500, 600 miles from the port, which in most scenarios doesn't make any sense because you're talking $4,000 to $5,000 just to ship that container from the port to Ohio. That's more than the overseas transport in a lot of cases, right?
Yeah.
But these companies need it done and are paying to get it done because if it's not on the store shelves by when it needs to be there, they might lose most of those sales. So you see lots of urgent situations that require things that are not done normally throughout the year to capitalize on these things. And that creates opportunities for freight brokers, right? Like, so you really want to ask a lot of questions around, hey, how did it go last year? Did you have to do anything outside of your normal operations for any reason, just so that I can have a heads up and make sure I've got carriers lined up if and when you might need that, right? It's all about preparation and not about reaction, I think, when it comes to this time of year, because it changes the market.
I have a good story for you on that, but I'm going to give a shout out to Lean Solutions Group first. Is your freight brokerage hiring? You've got to check out Lean Solutions Group, the industry leader in nearshore staffing for logistics companies with offices in South America, Mexico, and the Philippines. They offer a wide range of roles from back office operations to web development and marketing. Partner with the best. Visit www.leangroup.com to learn more. LEAN group.com. All right. So, back when I worked at Best Buy, right? Back in my good old college days, it's retail, right? Black Friday, big. They're obviously a big chain for shopping on Black Friday, getting, electronics and whatnot. So, the freight side of Best Buy, and I'm telling you, if you go to any Best Buy, you'll probably notice there's a freight door, like a dock door, typically like hidden off to the side next to the entrance. And it might be tucked around a corner if it's at a mall or whatnot. But the warehouses tend to be like in the front corner or side of the store. If it's a standalone, it might be in the back. But anyway, we would have like Black Friday, everyone had to work. We were open. When I worked there, it was like midnight to midnight. So like 24 hours, you either worked the first 12 of the day or the second 12. But getting that warehouse loaded, and I don't mean just loaded, but like all the racks were loaded, but then you had to like floor load piles of TVs and stuff because it was Black Friday. You had all this excess stuff. But it was like a massive operation when those trucks came in to deliver all the goods. It was crucial. And more importantly, they had to get there on time, because if they didn't, could you imagine a Black Friday where like Best Buy didn't have their TVs? That would be huge. So that's to your point. Like, you will pay somebody double the freight rate to ensure that your $500,000 worth of electronics gets delivered to your store on time to be purchased by a bunch of mob-like Black Friday shoppers.
And not only that, right? Can you imagine the bad publicity if you didn't have what you advertised?
Yeah. Yep.
Dozens or hundreds of people, right, waiting in line and not able, just don't have any of them. Not like you got there late and couldn't get it, but like they just didn't have what they advertised, right? Like, that's a huge, negative consequence to this brand, their image.
Yeah.
Like, so there's large costs to these things not being where they need to be. Steven just sent a message, which is another thing. And again, this reminds me of that same customer. We did a lot of this. He had said a lot of their carrier side gets calls for assets from local companies wanting to rent trailers, dry and reefers for storage, right?
Becomes
for
a little mobile warehouse.
food.
Yeah.
And that's super common. During the pandemic, when it was really bad, right? I had containers that Macy's was paying to ship to them in September for the holiday season that they were paying $300 a day in demurrage, right? For these container, not in demurrage, and per diem fees for having the container on site longer than they needed to. For 3 months, $300 a day for that container to sit with inventory outside of a Macy's so that they knew they would have it for when this time came. And these are huge numbers. And again, when a business needs to expand in a very short amount of time and then it's going to contract within 45 days on the other end, they're not going to build out their warehouse for that. They're going to do exactly what Stephen pointed out. They're going to look for mobile solutions that are temporary that, may cost a little bit more, but it's only 40 days, 45 days. It makes more sense to have a trailer next to my warehouse than for me to extend my warehouse in a lot of these scenarios.
Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely right. There was a lot of that early on in the pandemic time as well. And I know you mentioned that with Macy's.
It's a great question to ask. It's a great question to ask all of your customers just because it shows that you've got experience and insight into common issues within the industry. And it adds a hell of a lot of credibility to yourself and your business when you ask these types of pointed questions.
Yeah, agreed. Let's shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about 2023. We'll do like our annual wrap up the year episode later on and planning for 2024. But I do want to talk about a couple of things here because there has been, I feel like people are like just fear mongered right now. Like you got people that are afraid they're going to lose their job, that their company's going to shut down, and rightfully so. There are certain companies where that is the case. There's a woman that joined our company a couple months ago. And when I first started talking to her and she's like, yeah, I think my company might be shutting down. I was like, oh, who do you work for? She's like, Meadowlark. Sure as hell, they shut down about a month ago. So like they kind of knew the writing was on the wall. You'll get that like spidey sense if things start to seem a little weird in your organization. But I will say that this is still a massive, massive industry that we work in. And if you run your company right and you have your business running with good principles, you can take really good advantage of this year. We've seen a lot of companies go out of business this year. We've also seen a lot of businesses flourish, right? If you do the right thing in a down market, it's really easy to make money in a great market, but it takes the real skilled and the really good freight brokers to make money in a down market. Like our Pierce Worldwide, where I work, we posted record numbers last month that I've never seen numbers that high, right? And rates now are like historically low. It's feeling like 2019 right now, and it's not. But it goes to show that if you consistently do the work, and like we were, Ben, you and I were talking with some TIA members this week about long-term growth and planning, and the whole thing was like prospecting has to always be part of your business, right?
Yep.
When the market's good, when the market's not good, it's always got to be part of it. Otherwise, you will inevitably fail. And I think that's where some of these companies have. Obviously, there's been financial issues, but you don't have a money issue if you've got new customers constantly coming in and new business constantly coming in. I feel like that's probably an issue that a lot of folks had, is they had their blinders on because they're making so much money in the past couple of years off of a few hot accounts that, oh, snap, they turned the faucet off, and now we don't have all this other business to back it up. So needless to say, there is opportunity regardless. This is still a multi-billion dollar industry that like $800 billion, the freight industry. So there's plenty of chance and opportunity out there, right? There's a ton. You're going to see different kinds of consumption, different kinds of spending, different kinds of shipping going on. But either way, if you can adapt to that, and again, it's not the last time the market's going to change. It'll always change. It's cyclical. You've got to be able to adapt to that. So
three things.
I'm curious,
right?
What have you seen throughout, unless you have any comment on that, but I'm curious what you've seen throughout, whether it's business yourself or other folks that you've worked with throughout the year. What does 2023 look like for them, besides everyone being pissed off about rates and all that stuff?
I think it's pretty similar, right? Like it's a few things. So they say like is it defense or is it offense that wins championships? Well, it's both, right? And they're not mutually exclusive. You can do both, right? On the defensive side, the businesses that are doing well, they had my mind just went blank. It was on the defensive side, they showed restraint, right? Like they didn't go overboard in their spending, right?
Yeah.
They were conservative in how they managed their money, right? Just because it was coming in easier didn't mean they were willing to spend it, right? Like they held reserves, they've got cash on hand, right? For when the lean times
Jay-Z
come.
said it best, right? In anticipation for precipitation, stack chips for a rainy day.
There you go. Literally can't say it much better than that. Right. I'm impressed that you pulled it that quick off the cuff.
It was
but for sure, right?
The Rihanna song "Umbrella." Yeah.
But you've got to be disciplined in your business, right? With your finances, and you've got to pay attention to the leverage. How much debt does your business have, and what happens if interest rates change? Just because they have stayed this way for 9 or 10 years, it's certainly, if you look at a 25-year period, it would be a ridiculous statement to say they would always stay that way. And if you looked at 50 years, you would say that's ludicrous. But as human beings, we tend to feel like whatever is happening is always going to happen, right? So that is for sure one thing that I think the businesses that are doing well did right this year. And the other side is offense, right? Like the best way to protect yourself against loss is more growth, right? Like keep putting up points, keep running that score up, keep adding prospects to your funnel, keep reaching out, keep following up, even if they're not coming through as fast as you want or as you had hoped or as you'd wished, doesn't matter. If you are consistent on your output and you are disciplined on how you're spending and handling your cash, up or down market, you will succeed and you will do well, right? And I mean, there's plenty of examples like that. Now, and I think the third and final point is the businesses that are consistent with the output, meaning they're following up, they're increasing their reach of who they're talking to and trying to build relationships with, whether they stay prospects or not, they're still doing that a lot. And what that does is that takes advantage of every other business in the market that isn't doing both of those things or one of those things. The companies that didn't manage their finances well and they were still selling, they're not in business because they couldn't cash flow it, right? The ones that aren't prospecting, that manage their cash well, also aren't in business because their customers base shrunk too much and they're not there anymore, right? You've got to do both. But every time anybody we're competing with, and in this industry, we're competing against everybody in the market all the time.
Yep.
So every mistake that everyone else is making, that everyone else is blaming on the market, to me, that's good news. That just means I've got an advantage every single day for every one of these instances that someone else isn't paying attention to. So for me, like personally, I get excited, not because the market's down, because it's always shifting, right? And if companies are going out of business because they're not consistent with either of these things, it is creating opportunities for the companies that do well. And you know what? They're the ones that are not only going to endure the down market, they're going to kill it on the other side of this market. And they're going to be the first ones positioned as this market goes up.
That's
and it will inevitably.
About. So like posting record numbers in October 2023, when a lot of companies are going out of business, man, I can't wait until the market turns and we see like a resurgence. Like
for sure.
It's going to pay dividends. So love it, man. I love it. What else we got for 2023?
Well, I mean, I think we saw, and again, we've talked about this, there's lots of businesses, whether they're in our industry or not, that are going out of business. But I mean, again, most of that's related to capital management, right? Companies thinking that you could borrow for no cost forever, right? They get into habits and they get into spending habits that put them in positions that are really hard to get out of or impossible, right? So, I mean, those lessons, if you're in one of those businesses or have been employed one, let that sink in, because that's a lesson you want to learn, even if the cost was fear and you having to find another job or start another business. Everybody kind of has been there that is successful. We've all lost. The important thing is not dwelling on the loss or, feeling guilty for yourself and, woe is me, and putting responsibility for everyone and everything outside of yourself, right? Because in that scenario, you'll feel better about the loss right now, but you get no benefit of that into the future. No future task or business or anything you do from this point forward will benefit from you getting punched in the face, we'll say. But if you learned where that punch came from and you know how to look for it, now every time you're in that scenario, you know to look for that left hook when it's coming, right?
Yeah.
You now are starting. And again, that's how we all learn as human beings. We learn from painful lessons. So like if anyone is in these scenarios, maybe you lost a big customer this year and you didn't expect it. Maybe, you just didn't expect this company to get bought by this company and you lost another customer, right? Like these are all the lessons that I've learned too, right through it, of reminding me why it's so important to never let your foot off the gas in prospecting. Like we say that more than anything else because it's one of the most important things, right? Aside from managing the cash flows of your business, it's the same thing for a personal, broker. If you're an agent, right? Looking at how much your commitments are within your family. Like, did you buy that big house because you have one customer? That's pretty risky, right? You lose that. That's a pretty big hit to take and to try to work through, right? So just the same as big companies need to manage that, I think it's really important for everybody out there to realize if you're in sales, you're a small business and your expenses are your families. They're intertwined. They're the same thing. You cannot pull them apart, right? So again, prudence and making sure that you're not spending beyond what your means are, or that you're not a lot riskier than you feel like you are. Because when you're winning, it feels like you'll win forever. And it most certainly will not be forever. No matter what it is, no matter what the win is, it all comes to an end eventually.
All good
and you
things
gotta get more.
come to an end.
For sure.
Lastly, on this, I will say, because you made a lot of good points there. This is what, so you mentioned like companies that might be unhealthy and whatnot. I think like shippers fall in the same boat when there's an economic disturbance or downturn, whatever you want to call it. The freight brokers that are not just transactional, but truly build relationships can get really good insight into this stuff. So if you're talking to your customer and all you do is bid on freight and that's it, like you're never going to get an inside like vision into what's going on behind the scenes inside those four walls. But if you have a good relationship with your customer and you have those like not load specific conversations, you build rapport, you can start to pick their brain. They might tell you about what's going on and what the moving parts and pieces are within the organization. And that's not just good because you can find out what might be bad that's coming up, but you might find out about a whole nother division of this company that has opportunities for you that you never even thought of. Because all you did was talk about their spot loads that fall under the name of this company right here, where you had no idea they actually have like 4 other divisions with different named companies that all fall under a parent organization, and boom, you've got access to this stuff. So that's just a little tidbit to add in there is have that one little extra conversation with your customer, right? And this is a great time. Like, I mean, today is Wednesday. This doesn't come out till Friday, but the day before a holiday weekend when everyone's got their loads covered and there's some downtime, or even look forward to late December when people start to do inventory and slow down shipping operations, you got free time. That's the time to start having these extra conversations. And it could be as simple as like, hey, how'd the holidays go for you? Right? Anything, You got any big plans for 2024? Like little stuff like that. You're building rapport. You're building a relationship with somebody. You can't say enough about that. You can't put a price tag on how valuable that is.
I want to add 2 points to that, right? Like that is why this time of year has always been one of my favorite times to prospect, because it's the easiest to loop in a personal interest. Everybody's mindset to some degree is partially on
holidays,
shopping,
year end,
holidays, family, vacation, holiday party, whatever it is, right? Like, so even when there's not like a holiday in the beginning of December, the middle, almost every company has a Christmas party, some holiday event. So just asking that question opens up a whole avenue and an opportunity for them to tell you about what they're interested in and what's going on at their company outside of the normal business stuff, right? And to your point, you don't have to have a whole other conversation to start determining if there's more opportunity at your same customer. Ask one more question every time you talk to them. Every time you talk, I try to expand my understanding just a little bit every time I talk to my existing customers. In fact, yesterday, this happened to me. We are doing tankers for a customer in North Carolina. And I was like, oh, hey, how's your week coming along heading into the holiday, Mary? She's like, oh, stuff's been great tanker-wise, got everything buttoned up, but my imports are just a pain in my ass. What was that, Mary? Tell me a little bit more about your imports. Who's managing those? I have 25 containers to quote in 3 weeks, and I'm pretty sure I can knock 15% off the top for what she's paying and still make it a good run for us, right? That one little hint, that one little point, that one little question in the same conversation, right, is expanding that relationship.
Exactly.
Every time you're talking to a customer, just a little bit more. Hey, you know what? It's been a while since we talked about everything other than what we kind of work on every day, your whatever lane, your distribution loads or whatever it is you're working on. Hey, let me ask you, as you guys are going into the end of the year, I mean, what are you guys doing next year? How many divisions do you guys have again in total? How many people are working in your department? That'll tell you a whole lot. If you thought there's 2 or 3 people and you find out there's 15 people that have the same job as the person you're talking to, you can be assured there's a lot of opportunity that you're not getting an opportunity to quote or to run. And that is, again, easy opportunities to expand either a relationship on a personal topic or actual business opportunities just by asking one more innocuous question, right? That they're going to answer.
That's it. I agree. Well, we're going to wrap up a way that we used to wrap up, which is talking future NFL games. It just came to my attention that the Steelers and the Bengals are playing each other on Sunday. So, so Steven, why don't you come back in here? That's our producer. He's a Cincinnati Bengals fan. So the two of you guys, I want to have you guys have a brief discussion here and convince me as to who's going to win this game. Ben, you've got an offense that just fired their offensive coordinator, and Kenny Pickett, a young quarterback. And Steven, you've got I don't even know who your backup quarterback is behind Joe Burrow, but
I don't either. I don't either.
But what do you think this game is going to look like? It's supposed to be like a shootout. Like it's a pretty dead even matchup.
1.5 the line in favor of Cincy playing in Cincy.
I'm showing it.
Steelers don't win.
Pittsburgh getting a point. Or Pittsburgh -1. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
The over-under is 34.5, which I think is hilarious. Such a low over-under.
I had it 17.5 on what I was looking at, but that was yesterday.
That might be Pittsburgh's total points.
Yeah, I think the defense is the way they are. It's going to be a boring game, probably like one of them Germany games, and Steelers are going to win.
All right, Ben, I see. So this ESPN shows me that when it opened up, Cincinnati was favored by 1, and as the week has progressed, it is currently Pittsburgh favored by 1, according to ESPN.
I like Pittsburgh. I like Pittsburgh because I think they won games I felt like they shouldn't. I feel like they really should have won last week in Cleveland and didn't, and I feel like they are going to show up, and I think the defense, if the defense shows up and can put some points on the boards, I think the Steelers win because you can't certainly not rely on the offense to score their half of 34.
So I'm curious I'm using the New York Times playoff picture. I love the little interactive thing. So it looks like it doesn't really matter for the Bills. I mean, like a sliver, it would be more beneficial if the Steelers win, it says. Okay. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I guess we're in a consensus, though.
Jake Browning is the backup quarterback.
Jake Browning, fair enough. Well, Bills-Eagles, 4:30 on Sunday afternoon in Philadelphia. I mean, I feel like the Bills are going to lose, but the Mafia in me is obviously I'm gonna call a game-winning drive by the Bills, field goal or something. Josh Allen's gonna ball, gonna be a real solid 7-5, or maybe 6-6. Who knows? But that's all I got, man. Everyone out there listening, I hope you guys have a phenomenal holiday weekend. Go get your Black Friday shopping done. Hey, maybe you got AirPods in as you're walking around Walmart right now, tripping over people buying Pokemon cards and Beanie Babies or whatever people buy these days. But happy Thanksgiving and Black Friday to everybody. Ben, you got any final thoughts or any closeout?
Whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right.
And until next time, go Bills.
That wraps up this episode of Freight 360. Check out the show notes for links to anything that we've referenced on this episode. And make sure to visit us online at freight360.net to see our entire library of episodes, videos, blogs, and more.
And make sure to check us out on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel for daily and weekly tips and content. And if you'd like your question answered on the show, fill out the Contact Us form on our site, and we'll see you next week.